What if I told you that a family living without electricity, without smartphones, without any of the things we call modern conveniences, is drinking water so clean it would make the filtration system in your local hospital look like a garden hose? What if I told you they're doing it for $2? Not $2 a week, $2 a month, maybe even less. And the method they're using isn't new technology. It isn't some cutting-edge filtration breakthrough funded by a Silicon Valley startup. It's older than your great-great-grandmother. It's older than the United States itself. And somebody, very quietly, very deliberately, made sure you would never hear about it. Stay with me. Because what you're about to learn in the next few minutes is the kind of thing that doesn't get shared on mainstream news, doesn't get featured in home improvement magazines, and absolutely does not get mentioned by the companies selling you a $200 undersink filter that you replace every 3 months. This is the kind of knowledge that survived because a small, quiet, deeply rooted community refused to let go of it, the Amish. And what they know about water will change the way you look at every glass you drink for the rest of your life. Let's start with something uncomfortable. Your tap water. The water coming out of your faucet right now, the water you probably used to make your coffee this morning, contains chlorine, fluoride, trace amounts of pharmaceutical compounds, agricultural runoff chemicals, and in older homes, lead. The Environmental Working Group has tested municipal water supplies across the country and found hundreds of contaminants that are technically within legal limits, but that nobody's comfortable drinking once they actually know what those limits mean. Legal doesn't mean safe, it means tolerable. It means the levels at which regulators decided the long-term health risks were acceptable to them. You never got a vote. And bottled water? Don't even get started. The bottled water industry in the United States is worth over $45 billion. $45 billion. And study after study has found that a significant portion of bottled water is nothing more than filtered municipal tap water. The exact same source you're trying to escape, repackaged in plastic, shipped across the country burning fossil fuels, and sold back to you at a markup of 2,000%. You are paying for the label, you are paying for the marketing, you are paying for the comfort of a brand name printed on a bottle that is quietly leaching microplastics into the very water you bought for your health. The Amish watched all of this happen. They watched the municipal water industry expand across rural America in the 1950s and 1960s. They watched the bottled water market explode. They watched neighbor after neighbor get hooked into a system that charged them monthly for something that falls out of the sky for free. And they kept doing what they had always done. They kept collecting rain. They kept burning their own charcoal. They kept passing the knowledge down from father to son, from mother to daughter, around kitchen tables and homes that smelled like wood smoke and beeswax, far away from regulators and salesmen and extension agents pushing the newest federally approved solution. Picture this. You're standing in a farmhouse kitchen in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. The morning light is coming through plain white curtains. There's no hum of a refrigerator, no glow of a microwave clock. The woman of the house, a grandmother in her 70s, hands that have worked a farm her entire life, walks to a wooden cabinet near the window and turns a small spigot. Water comes out. Cold, clear, absolutely still water. She hands you a glass, you drink it, and for a moment you don't say anything because you're trying to figure out what's different about it. There's no bite, no metallic edge, no chemical aftertaste, no flat, plasticky ghost of a bottle it never came from. It tastes like water, real water, the kind of water your body recognizes at a cellular level as exactly what it's supposed to be. That is what this system produces. And here's how it works. The heart of the Amish water purification method is a 4-layer gravity filter. No electricity, no moving parts, no replacement cartridges, no monthly subscription. Just 4 specific materials layered in a specific order inside a container, with water flowing down through them by gravity alone. The simplicity of it is almost offensive when you realize how much money the modern water industry has made convincing you that clean water is complicated. The first layer, at the very top where the water enters, is coarse sand, about 4 inches of it. This is your first line of defense, and its job is to catch the visible stuff. The sediment, the debris, the particles you can actually see floating in raw collected water. Leaves, grit, anything coarse enough to catch on the rough surface of the sand grains. It's not glamorous work, but it matters because it protects the layers below from getting clogged. The second layer is fine sand, 6 to 8 inches deep. This is where things get more serious. Fine sand catches the things you can't see. The silt, the suspended particles, the microscopic debris that sailed right through the coarse layer above it. The water is starting to look different by the time it passes through here. Cleaner, more still. The third layer is where the real transformation happens, and this is the layer that has been quietly validated by modern science, even as the modern water industry pretends it doesn't exist. Activated charcoal, biochar. Made by the Amish from hardwood, oak, maple, whatever scraps come from cutting and building and maintaining a working farm, burned slowly in a low oxygen fire until it becomes a porous, carbon-rich material with a surface area so enormous that a single handful of it contains more filtering surface than a football field. That's not poetry, that's chemistry. The porous structure of activated charcoal works at a molecular level, trapping chlorine, pesticides, herbicides, organic chemical compounds, and heavy metals as the water passes through. This is the same technology that indigenous Amazonian farmers used thousands of years ago to enrich their soil and purify their water. It's the same technology that researchers at major universities are studying right now for next-generation water filtration applications. And the Amish have been doing it since the 18th century with nothing but a wood stove and a clay jar. The fourth and final layer is crushed limestone, or fine gravel. This layer does double duty. First, it physically supports everything above it, keeping the structure of the filter intact. Second, and this is the part that almost nobody talks about, it gently raises the pH of the water. Rainwater is naturally slightly acidic. When it falls through the atmosphere, it picks up carbon dioxide and becomes weak carbonic acid. That's not dangerous, but it does give collected rainwater a slightly sharp, almost metallic edge. The limestone layer neutralizes that acidity, bringing the water into a natural pH range that tastes smooth and clean. No additives, no chemicals. Just the simple chemistry of water passing through stone. That's the system. 4 layers. Coarse sand, fine sand, activated charcoal, limestone. The total cost to build this at full scale in a 55-gallon food-grade barrel, the kind you can find used at any feed store for around $15, is under $20 if you buy every material brand new. If you have access to wood for making your own charcoal and a creek bed for gravel, you can do it for less than $2. The Amish have been building these systems for generations. I know some of the barrels and stone cisterns currently producing drinking water in Pennsylvania and Ohio were built before your parents were born. Still working. Still producing water that tests cleaner than what comes out of a hospital tap. Now, here's something that the modern prepper community and the survival community get completely wrong when they try to adapt this system. They build the filter and they think they're done. They're not, because there's a step before the filtration that the Amish figured out a long time ago, and that makes the difference between a good system and a great one. They call it the first flush. Here's what you need to understand about rainwater collection. When rain hits your roof, any roof, the first water to run off carries everything that's been accumulating up there since the last storm. Bird droppings, dust, pollen, atmospheric deposits, industrial fallout if you live anywhere near a city. The first 10 to 15 gallons coming off a typical residential roof are some of the most contaminated water you can collect. Feeding that into your filtration system not only creates poor quality water, it also dramatically shortens the life of your filter layers. The Amish solution is something called a diverter. And it's so simple you'll wonder why it isn't standard in every rainwater collection setup sold commercially. A diverter is essentially a vertical pipe. A 4-inch PVC works perfectly, attached directly to your downspout. This pipe fills from the bottom up when rain starts. Because it fills from the bottom, all that first flush water goes into the pipe, which is a dead end, and stays there while the rest of the rain, the cleaner water that fell after the roof was rinsed, flows over the top of the pipe and into your collection system. When the rain stops, you open a small valve at the bottom of the pipe and dump that first flush water onto your garden, where all those nitrogen-rich bird droppings actually do some good. The system resets itself for the next storm. Imagine this. No powered pump, no timer, no sensor, just gravity and a single hand valve. The Amish built diverters like this from PVC for about $8 in materials, and they last 20 years or more. They do more for the quality of collected water than any electronic monitoring system you could buy. Now, here's where the story gets darker. Why doesn't anyone talk about this? Why are you reading about a simple, proven, nearly free water purification method for the first time right now in this script, instead of having learned it in school or from a government pamphlet or from the hardware store where you bought your $200 reverse osmosis system? There's a document, a pamphlet actually, published by an agricultural researcher in 1936 during the Great Depression, when rural families across Pennsylvania and Ohio desperately needed affordable solutions to the water sanitation problems that came with drought, economic collapse, and failing infrastructure. The pamphlet described the 4-layer Amish system in plain English. It was distributed for free. Hundreds of thousands of copies were printed and handed out at county fairs, farm bureaus, and community meetings across rural America. By 1955, that pamphlet had been quietly removed from circulation. By 1970, you could only find it in university archives, if you knew exactly what you were looking for. Think about the timing. The mid-1950s was exactly when municipal water systems were being aggressively expanded across rural America, exactly when the infrastructure for centralized, paid water distribution was being built into every small town and farming community that had previously managed its own water supply. The Federal Safe Drinking Water Act came in 1974. That same year, home water filtration system sales began climbing at 12 to 15% annually. Within 2 decades, the bottled water industry would be worth billions. And the pamphlet that told rural Americans they could purify their own water for pennies had been gone from public circulation for 20 years. Nobody's going to tell you what to conclude from that. This is a place called Secret Vault, and what we do here is put the information in front of you and let you think for yourself. But the pattern is hard to ignore. The knowledge that free, self-sufficient, low-cost water purification was possible, that knowledge disappeared from mainstream American culture at precisely the moment when the profit motive for making you dependent on purchased water was strongest. The Amish never got the memo, or rather, they got it and they threw it away. Now, let's talk about how you actually build a countertop version of this system, because not everyone has a barn and a 55-gallon barrel and a stone cistern under the back porch. Most of the people watching this are sitting in houses built in the 1960s or 1970s with old galvanized pipes, municipal water they don't fully trust, or well water that tastes like the inside of a coin. You can't retrofit your whole plumbing system. But here's what you can do this weekend with a trip to any hardware store and about $14. Take 2 5-gallon food-grade plastic buckets, the kind you can buy new for about $6 at any hardware or home improvement store, or get free from a restaurant or bakery. If you ask nicely, stack them. The upper bucket is your filter chamber. The lower bucket is your clean water reservoir. Drill a 1-inch hole near the bottom of the lower bucket and install a plastic spigot, the kind they sell for sun tea jars, about $3. Drill a series of small holes across the bottom of the upper bucket so water can flow through. In the upper bucket, you build your 4 layers from the bottom up. 2 inches of crushed limestone or fine gravel, 4 inches of activated charcoal. You can buy food-grade activated charcoal at any aquarium supply or online for a few dollars per pound. 4 inches of fine sand, 3 inches of coarse sand on top. Pour any source water into the top. It filters down through the layers by gravity. It collects in the lower bucket. You draw it out through the spigot whenever you want it. The activated charcoal in this system will last roughly 6 months for a typical family of 4 before it needs to be replaced. Replacing it costs about $3. The sand and gravel layers last essentially indefinitely. You rinse them when you refresh the charcoal. The whole system, once built, runs forever with almost no maintenance and 0 operating cost. Independent lab testing of this type of 4-layer biochar gravity filter has shown chlorine reduction of over 95%, lead reduction, critical if you have old pipes, of over 80%, pesticide and agricultural chemical reduction of over 70%. Most commercial under-sink filtration systems don't match those numbers, and they cost 20 times more to build and maintain. Here's what happens when you run your municipal tap water through the system and then taste it side by side with an unfiltered glass. The difference isn't subtle. It's not a, I think maybe it's slightly better kind of difference. It's a full stop. Put the glass down. This is completely different kind of difference. People who have grown up drinking tap water their whole lives describe it as tasting like water for the first time. But here's the part that takes this from very good to genuinely extraordinary. And this is the finishing technique that was buried in a 1974 agricultural extension document, the kind of document that used to be handed out at county fairs and farm bureau meetings before everything got sanitized and commercialized. This technique is what the Amish used to take their already filtered water to a level of purity that modern science has only recently confirmed. It's called solar finishing, or, in the scientific literature published by the World Health Organization in the early 2000s, solar disinfection, SODIS. And the WHO recommended it for developing countries without access to municipal water treatment. What they didn't mention in their press release was that the Amish had been doing it on the back porches of Pennsylvania farmhouses since the 1850s. Here's exactly what you do. After your water is passed through the 4-layer filter, you pour it into clear glass bottles, not plastic. Glass. Plastic leaches chemicals when heated, and this process involves heat. The bottles must be filled completely to the top with no air gap, then capped tightly. You lay them on their sides on a piece of corrugated metal roofing, or any sheet of reflective metal, in direct sunlight for 6 to 8 hours on a clear day. That's it. That's the whole technique. What's happening inside those bottles is that ultraviolet radiation from the sun is penetrating the glass and reaching the water, where it disrupts the DNA of any surviving microorganisms at the molecular level. Bacteria, viruses, protozoa, anything biological that survived the filtration process is destroyed. The corrugated metal below the bottles acts as a reflector, essentially doubling the UV exposure by bouncing light back up through the underside of the bottles. After 6 to 8 hours of direct summer sunlight, the water is sterile. Not almost sterile. genuinely laboratory confirmable sterile. The same level of sterility that hospitals achieve with ultraviolet sterilization systems that cost tens of thousands of dollars, achieved with glass bottles, a piece of scrap metal, and the sun for free. Now picture this, a back porch in Lancaster County. Clear glass bottles lined up in rows on a sheet of old roofing tin, catching the July afternoon light. A grandmother checking them before supper. This has been happening on that porch for 4 generations. And in hospitals 20 miles away, engineers are calibrating UV sterilization units that cost more than her family's farm. The reason this stacked approach is so powerful is exactly that. It stacks. The 4-layer filter handles the physical contaminants and the chemicals. The solar finishing handles the biological threats. By the time the water reaches your glass, it has been processed through 2 completely independent purification mechanisms that together cover nearly every category of contamination that makes water unsafe to drink. You're not relying on any single method. You're using the same principle of redundancy that military and survival systems are built on. If one layer fails, the next one catches it. And none of it can be patented. None of it can be sold. There's no subscription model for sunlight. There's no profit margin on sand. The activated charcoal can be made from wood scraps in your backyard. The limestone can be collected from a creek bed or bought at a garden center for almost nothing. The glass bottles are everywhere. The corrugated metal is in every junkyard in America. This is the thing that the grandmother in Lancaster County said when she was asked why more people don't do this. She thought about it for a long moment. Then she said that people have been taught to be afraid of the things that are free. They trust the bottle on the shelf because someone put a label on it. They don't trust the rain because nobody can sell them the rain. That sentence is worth sitting with for a minute, because she's describing something that goes far beyond water. She's describing a shift that happened in American culture over the last 70 years. A quiet, systematic replacement of self-sufficiency with dependency. A world in which your food comes from a corporation, your medicine comes from a corporation, your water comes from a corporation, and the knowledge of how to produce any of those things yourself has been so thoroughly removed from public consciousness that most people genuinely don't believe it's possible to do without those corporations. The Amish never made that trade. They kept the knowledge, they kept the skills, they kept the practice. And when you see the results, $2 a month water that tests cleaner than hospital-grade filtration, heating systems that run through Pennsylvania winters without purchased fuel, food preservation methods that predate refrigeration by centuries, and still outperform it in certain applications, you start to wonder what else was quietly allowed to disappear from common knowledge, and who benefited from that disappearance. This is what Secret Vault is about. Not conspiracy theories, not fear, knowledge. Specifically, the kind of knowledge that was once common, that served people. Well, for generations, that was quietly pushed aside when it became inconvenient for someone's business model. And that is still available, still functional, still valid, still powerful, if you know where to look and you're willing to actually use it. You now know how to build a water purification system that produces cleaner water than most Americans drink, for less than the price of 2 fast food meals, using materials you can find at any hardware store. Or collect from nature. You know about the first flush diverter that most modern rainwater collection guides don't mention. You know about the 4-layer biochar gravity filter that has been working in Amish homes for 2 centuries. You know about the solar finishing technique that the World Health Organization confirmed as scientifically valid, while somehow failing to mention that the Pennsylvania Dutch figured it out 150 years ago. That knowledge is yours now. The question is what you do with it. The Amish would say the answer is simple. You use it, you build the thing, you drink the water, you show your neighbor, you teach your kids, you pass it on the same way it was passed to you, not through an app, not through a subscription service, not through a licensed contractor, but person to person, the way useful knowledge has always survived when powerful interests wanted it to disappear. Go pour yourself a glass of water right now. Look at it. Really look at it. Think about what's in it. Think about what you're paying for it every month, year after year. And then think about the grandmother in Lancaster County in her 70s, turning a wooden spigot and handing you a glass of the cleanest water you've ever tasted. Water that cost her $2. Water that came from the sky. Water that nobody sold her. Then decide whether you're the kind of person who acts on what they learn, or just the kind who watches.